Hello, everyone, and welcome to Firstpost America. We're live in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., and over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, here's a look at the latest headlines. After failed negotiations, South Africa is now set to offer a revised trade deal to Washington in an effort to lower the 30% tariff rate President Donald Trump has imposed on exports to the United States. A Thai soldier is wounded in a landmine blast on the border with Cambodia, the army says, accusing its neighbor of laying new explosives in breach of a truce after last month's deadly cross-border clashes. Reports say Chinese authorities are urging companies to avoid using NVIDIA's H20 AI chips for government-linked projects as Beijing leans on domestic suppliers in the face of U.S. tech restrictions. A magnitude 6.3 earthquake strikes eastern Indonesia's Papua region, U.S. monitors say. There's been no reported tsunami threat and no immediate signs of damage or casualties. And Taylor Swift unveils plans for her 12th studio album, The Life of a Showgirl, opening it for pre-order online without revealing its cover art, track list, or release date. We begin here in Washington, where just days before his high-profile meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, President Donald Trump appeared to confuse the United States with Russia itself. And this gaffe has now triggered a wave of mockery online. On Monday, while addressing reporters in D.C. and the White House, speaking about rising crime and homelessness, the president soon veered to his planned sit-down with Vladimir Putin this Friday in Alaska. He mistakenly said he's going to Russia to see President Putin.
This is an emergency. This is a tragic emergency. And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was. Look, let's just do this. Let's do this. It's going to be a big thing. We're going to Russia. That's going to be a big deal. What happens, happens. I'll let you know what happens. You'll be the first to know. I'll be calling the European leaders.
Now, the backlash was immediate. Social media lit up with one user writing, "The so-called president of the United States thinks Alaska is in Russia. What an ongoing embarrassment." The slip-up comes at a sensitive time. The U.S.-Russia summit in Alaska is already making headlines, and the president's comments have added another layer of complexity. But this geographical fumble is tied to a place that actually does have deep historic links to Russia. Alaska was once part of the Russian Empire before the United States purchased it in 1867 for $7.2 million. The deal was arranged by Russian Tsar Alexander II and negotiated by Secretary of State William Seward. The deal, criticized at the time as Seward's folly, transferred an area more than twice the size of Texas. But even after that, Russian influence continued to linger. The Russian Orthodox Church established itself in Alaska with more than 35 onion-domed churches still dotting the coastline. Russian language and tradition survived in pockets of the state for decades. Even today, a small Orthodox community known as the Old Believers teaches Russian to local students. And U.S. forces routinely intercept Russian aircraft approaching American airspace in the region. In fact, Alaska and Russia are closer than many, in fact, realize, just 2.5 miles apart at the Bering Strait. And so while Alaska is firmly American soil and has been for more than 150 years, the president's geographic fumble has sparked more than just jokes. It's now part of the backdrop for Friday's face-to-face, a meeting where history, geography, and geopolitics will converge in one meeting space. And now to Los Angeles, where a vicious attack, most likely a hate crime incident, has left the Indian diaspora shocked. A 70-year-old Sikh man was left bloody and dazed in North Hollywood after being attacked with a golf club by a man on a bicycle in broad daylight. The visuals that you see on your screen have been blurred because they are too bloody, cruel, and gory to be shown. The unprovoked and brutal assault took place on August 4th outside a convenience store near a Sikh temple in the Lancashire Boulevard. 70-year-old Harpal Singh, a retired college professor from India and a U.S. citizen, remains in critical condition and is fighting for his life at Providence Holy Cross Medical Center. Family members say the elderly man has undergone at least 3 surgeries to address severe head and facial injuries, including brain bleeding and eye trauma. Police said the attack occurred while Singh was on his routine walk while returning from the temple. They say a witness saw the assault, but no clear suspect description has in fact been released. While a security cam video purportedly capturing the attacker has been making the rounds on social media, investigators have not confirmed whether the footage has in fact been obtained. Members of the Sikh community in North Hollywood are demanding a fair probe into what they say was a targeted hate crime and are also calling for more police protection. The Los Angeles police are actively seeking leads and have urged anyone with information to contact the North Hollywood division. This incident comes amid rising concerns over violence against Indian Americans, especially in the state of California. In recent years, not just Sikhs but even Hindus have faced harassment, assaults, and in some cases deadly attacks. There have also been incidents of Hindu and Sikh temple desecration and vandalization. All of this despite the state of California being especially equipped to track incidents of hate and bias through its hotline that Governor Gavin Newsom launched back in 2023. In 1 year since its inception, the hotline received over 2,000 calls and over 1,000 actual reports of hate, and the California vs. Hate website received over 60,000 visits. In fact, hate crime incidents have increased across the United States. According to the hate crime statistics released by the FBI, there were over 11,000 hate crime incidents involving over 14,000 victims in 2024 alone. As a man fights for its life, the LAPD continues its hunt for the attacker, and after more than a week, the family and community in Los Angeles await justice. In the United States, Indian immigrant doctors are not just familiar sights in hospital corridors, they're a strong pillar of the healthcare system. From clinics to cutting-edge research labs, their contributions touch millions of lives daily. But a recent social media post about one young Indian doctor has ignited a fierce online debate, not about his medical expertise, but about the cost of his education. And in the political climate of President Trump's America, that conversation has taken a sharper, more contentious turn. Here's the story with more.
They heal lives, drive innovation, and keep America's healthcare system running. Yet, in today's America, one Indian immigrant doctor's story has unexpectedly become the center of a storm. It all began when a social media user shared their experience visiting the doctor. During their conversation, the doctor mentioned that his entire medical education in India had cost just $800. What could have been an interesting trivia point quickly escalated, sparking heated debates online and exposing how bias and racism still shadow Indians overseas. Some netizens on X responded with disbelief and suspicion. One called it crazy how little a certificate could cost in India. Another claimed the amount was exactly what Indian fake credentialing industries charge. Others went further, calling his training inadequate and, in extreme cases, labeling such practitioners as poorly trained frauds. Some even compared the cost to U.S. medical schools, where tuition often runs into hundreds of thousands of dollars, and concluded, without evidence, that the degree must be fake. As the post gained attention, the conversation shifted. What began as a debate over tuition fees took on a racial edge, with sweeping remarks aimed at Indian medical professionals as a whole. Comments ranged from mocking how quickly one could enter medical school in India, to personal anecdotes framed in a negative light. The tone made it clear, this was no longer about the numbers but about prejudice. Indians online wasted no time in responding. They pointed out that public medical education in India is heavily subsidized by the government, making it accessible yet fiercely competitive, with millions of applicants fighting for a limited number of seats. They also reminded critics that India's top medical colleges are recognized worldwide for their quality, and unlike in many countries, the South Asian country does not trap its students under debts. To put things in perspective, according to reports last year, around 59,000 Indian doctors were practicing in the U.S., making up roughly 22%, or 1 in 5, of all immigrant doctors in the country. With such a strong presence in America's healthcare system, the backlash over one doctor's education cost was never just an online spat. It came at a time when immigration and work visas for Indians abroad are already contentious issues in President Trump's America. Recent policy shifts and political rhetoric have only added to the tension, turning this into a flashpoint over race, fairness, and trust. In the end, one doctor's $800 degree did more than spark arguments online. It became a symbol of how Indian excellence can be questioned, not for lack of merit, but because of misplaced assumptions. A reminder that while cost can be measured in dollars, value is measured in skill, service, and dedication, qualities that Indians continue to bring to the world.
One of Ireland's largest celebrations of Indian culture has been postponed, citing what organizers described as violent attacks against the community in recent months. The Ireland-India Council, which promotes the ties between the two countries, announced on Monday that India Day, originally scheduled for this Sunday, would be held at a later date when the situation improves. The situation followed a meeting between members of the Indian community and Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister, Simon Harris.
We feel that the situation at the moment for holding India Day is not conducive. The decision to postpone the event was very difficult, but was taken for the safety of the community. Even if a single attack were to result from the online perception of the event, it would not be worth it.
Now, India Day has been organized in collaboration with the Irish government since 2015, showcasing performances and cultural events. This year, hundreds of performers had been reportedly preparing, with the event also marking India's 79th Independence Day celebrations. But instead of music and festivities, this year's buildup has been overtaken by fear. There's reportedly around 80,000 people of Indian descent in Ireland, which is around 1% of the population. And in recent weeks, reports of attacks against Indians have increased significantly. In fact, last month, an Indian citizen in his 40s was violently assaulted and partially stripped by a group of attackers in Dublin. Then just days ago, local media reported that a 6-year-old girl of Indian origin was assaulted and subjected to racial slurs in Southeast Ireland. In another incident, an Indian taxi driver was struck across the face with a bottle in Dublin as attackers allegedly shouted, "Go back to your country." During their meeting with the country's Deputy Prime Minister, the Ireland-India Council says it also raised concerns over organized propaganda targeting the community. Now, following the meeting, Ireland's Simone Harris also took to social media and publicly condemned the violence.
I completely condemn the despicable acts of violence and racism that we have seen against some members of the Indian community in recent weeks. I want to thank the Indian community for their very positive contribution to Ireland.
Now, earlier this month, the Indian embassy in Dublin issued a safety warning to its citizens, urging them to avoid deserted areas and take extra precautions.
There has been an increase in the instances of physical attacks reported against Indian citizens in Ireland recently. All Indian citizens in Ireland are advised to take reasonable precautions for their personal security and avoid deserted areas, especially in odd hours.
Meanwhile, the Irish embassy in New Delhi has also issued a strong condemnation of the attacks.
We condemn these attacks in the strongest possible terms. Racism and xenophobia have no place in Irish society. The actions of the few do not reflect the spirit of the Irish people. It will not be tolerated.
For now, the Ireland-India Council says the priority is ensuring safety and making sure that assaults are recognized and recorded as hate crimes, with stronger laws to prevent them. Until then, India Day remains on hold, a reminder that for many in Ireland's Indian community, celebration can only return when fear is replaced by security and suspicion by acceptance. In Indonesia, instant noodles aren't just a snack, they're a national obsession. Eaten at street shops, homes, and even in offices, now a policy decision by President Donald Trump could make them even more cheaper. This decision to slash tariffs on wheat is fueling hopes of a noodle boom, what could benefit both consumers and producers, but it could also shake up the international wheat trade. Our final story takes you from the kitchens of Jakarta to a global marketplace.
Indonesia is one of the top noodle consuming countries. Billions of packets are sold, slurped and devoured every year. From Jakarta's office lunch breaks to late night road snacks in small towns. They are consumed every second. They are comfort and culture rolled into one. And now one move from Washington could make it cheaper. President Trump's recent decision to import an almost 0% tariff on certain US exports includes wheat. And that's the lifeblood of noodles. Industry analysts say this could drive production costs down, and that could give Indonesian manufacturers an edge. They will get more room to slash prices, expand exports, and serve up more variety to consumers.
Kita melihatnya harapannya bukan hanya dikonsumsi di dalam.
We see that the hope is not only for domestic consumption, but also for these processed products to be exported abroad. We know that our instant noodle products are already export-oriented in terms of quality, and with significantly lower input costs, wheat is cheaper. But we hope the industry will also benefit, especially since the food and beverage industry has not yet returned to its pre-pandemic levels, where growth was in the double digits. We hope that with lower input costs for the final product, these wheat flour-based processed products will be more competitive in the global and international markets.
For millions of Indonesians, this could mean cheaper noodles on the table. It might become a welcome thought in households where they are already a regular staple. Let's hear it firsthand from a noodle seller.
When the shop is busy, we can use up 3 to 4 boxes. Each box contains 40 packets. But on normal days, we use at least 2.5 boxes.
In Java City, this vendor runs a busy stall. He whips up steaming bowls of noodles from morning till night. He uses 3 to 4 boxes a day when it's busy. Each box of the variant he uses contains about 40 packets. That's more than 100 packets a day. Wheat is the essential ingredient to make noodles. But here's the catch. Indonesia doesn't grow wheat. It's because of tropical climatic conditions. Hence, every grain in the country comes from overseas. Enter America, one of Jakarta's biggest suppliers of the crop. That makes America a critical player in Jakarta's food chain. Indonesia has offered to slash tariffs on US imports, that too at a near zero rate. The country also committed to buying $500 million of American wheat. It is part of a major trade negotiation and is aimed at easing tariffs on Indonesian goods, which currently stands at 32% in some sectors. The deal couldn't have come at a better time. Instant noodle prices have been climbing steadily, and brands like Indomie are facing rising export demands. Back home, noodle stalls and outlets also remain as busy as ever. And with this trade deal being tied to Indonesia's favorite meal, the local boom might transform into a global craving. So the noodle story is heating up, and with some trade wins in Jakarta's favor, the slurp will mostly not slow down.
And from all of us here at Firstpost America, we certainly thank all of you for tuning in today. We look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. And thanks everyone for watching.